Hi, everyone. This is What's Your IQ? Let's talk about your impact quotient with Nancy Barbie. And I have to welcome an extraordinary woman today whose life is her whole life is a testament to resilience, purpose, and impact. And her name is Wendy O'Neill. But I got to tell you a little bit about Wendy before we get started. She is a certified high performance coach, an international keynote speaker, humanitarian, and founder of Pearls with a Purpose. But not only that, she's an author, an entrepreneur, a humanitarian to the 119th degree, and just an overall good person. And she and her husband, Dave, live in Salt Lake City, Utah. She's the mother of 5 children, and I think she says 7 grandchildren. But what makes her even more unique, which maybe it would not be a good thing to be unique for, but not only does she give back, but she's endured a lot of stress and pain herself, having been involved in 3 major vehicle car accidents and 61 surgeries, I believe. So what an extraordinary person, and I'm so happy to have Wendy. Welcome to What's Your IQ?
Thanks, Nancy. So great to be here. Yeah, what a great welcome. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and she started a nonprofit called Pearls with a Purpose, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute. But tell me a little bit about your background. Why did you do Pearls for a Purpose? What got you started in humanitarian service? Tell me.
I'm so glad you asked. I love this question because every time I answer it, it forces me to dig a little bit deeper on myself. The cut and dried response is I was a stay-at-home mom, 5 kids. I've been pregnant, nursing, toilet training, toddler babble for a decade straight. And I still love motherhood. It is my finest role. And so no complaints. But as women, because everybody else's needs come first, I had lost my identity. And so my baby was a few years old, and I just remember feeling so lost and lamenting that to my husband and just saying, I don't even know who I am. I don't know all I do is change diapers. And he's like, you're a certified gemologist. Like, why don't you go make some jewelry and sell it at a Saturday's market? And I was like, that's a good idea. And this is going to be such an unrelatable topic because nowadays things like that are so easy. It's so easy to just start something. But back then, 25 years ago, it was a task. I had to sit down at this computer, dial into AOL dial-up internet, listen to the static, and then I just made up a bunch of email addresses, sent them off to some Edzemails, some Hotmails, some Yahoos. There was no such thing as Gmail. And I just made up these things of pearls for sale, loose pearls at Edzemail, Hotmail. And I got several factory responses, but I did also get a response from a woman. Turns out she was based in the Philippines. And in the body of her email, she said one statement. And it was, if you import finished pieces from me, rather than loose pearls, you'll change women's lives in my country. And Nancy, in that moment, I was like, change women's lives. Like, I'm looking to change my life. What could I do to help somebody else? Like, I got 5 kids. I don't have a passport. Never heard of the Philippines. Didn't even know where it was. I said yes. And I worked it backwards. I just was like, well, how would that work? What do you mean change people's lives? What's going on for you? And I honestly thought her response was going to read similar to my own story. I've got kids and I don't know who I am. But no, her response was poverty. It was 3 pages of malnutrition, no education, no house, no daily food, no pantry, like no refrigerator. And it changed my life. I had never been exposed to that. I didn't understand it. And I never looked back away from that. I was just like, I do have to do something. Like, it just was no longer about me. It was about other people exist and they need help. I said, okay, send me some jewelry. I'll teach you how to make it. I'll teach you what an American woman is looking for. Here's what you're looking for in luster, in grading, in pearl size, in value. And here's the type of clasps women like to have on their jewelry. And we started with 5 necklaces, 5 bracelets, and 5 earrings. And so 15 SKUs, we now have close to 600. And it was that simple, and I just started showing them to my friends and my neighbors. Hey, look at this necklace. This lady in the Philippines made it. And she needs rice for her child. This woman in the Philippines has been making this and her kids are barefoot and they don't have clothes. They're in shorts all day.
Wow.
And all my friends and neighbors were like, what? Are you kidding? Yeah, I'll buy one of those. That was it. That was the basic premise 25 years ago for women in squatters' villages in the Philippines. And since then, we're in India, Cambodia, Peru, Thailand, Dominican Republic, Africa, Uganda, Kenya, So,
That's amazing story. It is amazing what one line will grab you, and
right?
that that's your calling then. But okay, from the Philippines, she would send stuff. How did you teach her? Did you go there? Did you
It
was
was all documents. It was all AOL. That was 2001 and two. And then in 2005, post the tsunami devastation, a nonprofit called, I think it was Wave of Hope Foundation, they had seen our products in a store here in Utah and the brochures and all that. And they reached out to me and said, hey, this is amazing. Could you do this for women in Thailand that survived the tsunami, that like their husbands were washed out, and like, could you help people in Thailand? And I was like, sure, send me their emails. And they were like, what? And I said, send me their emails and I'll send them all the training tutorials. And they were like, no, don't you have to go in person. And I said, no, like I've got 5 kids. I don't have a passport. They were like, Wendy, you need to go in person. Like you need to see these people. Plus in this particular area in Bonacam, it was not Wi-Fi compatible. It wasn't internet compatible. And we had a sponsor who was willing to pay. And she said, I'm going to send you to Philippines first because you need to meet the people you've been working with. Because at that point, we were up to 63 women. And so we'd grown from 4 women to 63 in a few years. And she was like, I can't believe you're doing all of this online. And in my mind, I was like, well, how else could I do it? I've got 5 kids under the age of 10. Like I don't have a choice. I can't just up and travel somewhere. And so she flew me into Philippines first. And it was probably the most transformational experience of my life. I said, do I need a hotel? What do I need to do? You're going to stay with us. And so what does our brain do? Okay, I'm going to stay like at a place like my house, or there'll be a hotel close by, like the Marriott or the Hilton. No, like they pick me up and we're in a thing called a jeepney in the Philippines, and it's public transportation. And we're all crammed in and we got my luggage in there, and we get out to this squatter's village, and she opens the door of her 10 by 10 home and shows me where I'm going to be sleeping in a corner dirt floored room they had laid down a sheet of plywood. They'd put a flat sheet over it, and that was my bedroom. And I was looking around, and I'm not in Kansas anymore. And I'm just like, okay, bathroom. And she walks me out to the jungle in their backyard, and they had taken a rope and strung up a tarp, and there was a bucket, and there was a little scoop measuring cup thing. She goes, this is your shower. It's so nice. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? But okay, this is what I do. And I saw and met and went into these squatters' homes of, at the time, these 63 women, and it just changes you. You cannot walk away from that and go back to who you used to be. You can't. And that. You've been to India. Once it changes you, that stays within you. It becomes part of you, and you never go back to anything as it had used to be, because it's forever different, and your vision is no longer blinders on either side, but you're just wide open, and you see we all bleed red. You see that we are just human to human having this human experience, and some of us are going through it differently than others, but relatably we are human to human.
Wow, I love that. That's exactly right. It does change your whole perspective. It opens your eyes to different people doing different things and living different ways. You're absolutely right. But they're weak just like we are.
Yeah.
They have their own aspirations. But okay, so you started out in going to the Philippines, and then you migrated to the Thailand because of this company, but how did you get in all these other places? Was it similar or?
It was, yeah, we've always been just invited in. People have learned what we were doing. So our premise is a little different. We definitely don't believe in a handout. We believe in a hand up. We believe in empowering an individual, because I know from all this training, individuals, it doesn't matter if they're sleeping on dirt floors. It doesn't matter, what their circumstances are. They have it within themselves to make the changes that need to be made. And they can sometimes, with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, clothing, food, shelter, sometimes there's that need. But once that's established, they know exactly what to do to ascend higher in that level of that pyramid. They know that internally they can pull from within themselves and create the transformation, create the self-reliance, create the dignity that they've been seeking for. But not having food, not having shelter, not having clothing was that block because they were constantly seeking that. And so once that is met, they know how to say, well, I'm going to go create this. I'm going to go try this. I'm going to learn this. I'm going to become more of myself because it's within them. And so vocational training is simply how can you own, operate, and run a successful business in your country and scale it and grow it. And we layer that with, emotional trauma healing, with relationship healing, with the dynamics and understanding of personal development. But the foundational level is, how do I own and operate a business? What's my vision? What is possibility for me? And once we can have an individual tap into possibility, they change. They simply go, wait, I could do a food truck? I love cooking chapati. I love making this. Okay, so then how would I grow? I have to have a food permit license. I have to have the propane to create the gas. What do I need? And then we guide them and mentor them through the steps needed. And sometimes it's a microcredit. Sometimes it's a loan. Sometimes it's a grant. Sometimes it's a sponsorship, because sometimes they do need that step up. But a lot of the times, through their own resources, once they have the knowledge, they create it themselves. Wow. That's the real miracle, because they have a belief in themselves. And I hate to say it like this, but when somebody with white skin is at their level, holding their hand, talking to them, laughing with them, relating to them, listening to them and their story, it's almost like they step into grandeur of, I'm worthy. And when they get a sense of their self-worth through the eyes of an American woman, a Caucasian woman, they transform. They're like, you think I am good enough? And you are from clear across the world and you have come here, well, then I must be. And so they just build and they grow from there. Wow. So that we offer self-reliance.
That's awesome. I love that phrase, hands up versus hand out. I love that. But a lot of people don't understand that in this world. And there's a difference between empowering people with dignity versus dependency. So what do you think the world misunderstands? There was one lesson that the world misunderstands about that particular phrase, hands versus hands out. What do people miss on that?
I think what is missing, and this again is coming from a North American perspective, right? A developed country perspective versus an underdeveloped perspective. I think on our end, we have a lot, and we have substituted what we truly want and desire with stuff. And then we feel guilty. And then we say, well, if somebody's struggling and suffering, I can offload my stuff and I can hand out to them and they'll feel better for a moment. There's always that moment of happiness that exists when we get that shiny new something. It's for some people it's shoes, some people it's a purse, some people it's a tie, some people it's clothing, some people it's their favorite dessert, whatever. There's a something, and we're like, I feel better. But then our real life comes back in. And then we're just sitting there going, well, I'm still not. And it's because we haven't done the work internally. We haven't addressed the actual need, which is typically emotional, right? It's typically something that we're just simply missing in our own life. And a lot of times there is just good people saying, I really want to help. I don't have the ability to go across the world. I can't go to India. I can't go to Africa. And so here, I'll give you these backpacks. And that's great. But there's a majority of people who the handout is the end all be all. And they don't comprehend, no, an individual, yes, there are some things they need, but overall what they really need is just your experiences, your life schooling, your willingness to put your arm around them and say, you're amazing, you're enough, who you are, just right here, right now, in all your poverty, in all your sickness, in all your absence of wealth, you are enough. And I see you, I hear you, I understand you. And that's all we need to do. That's a hand up there.
And that's true empowerment. That's true empowerment. When it comes to the heart, giving back to the heart, boy, that's true empowerment. 5 kids, Wendy, leaving them many trips must have been hard when they were younger, but what do they think of mom? And if any of them followed into your footsteps or along with you, what do they think about mom?
Well, it's so good. This is the day after Mother's Day, because according to Mother's Day yesterday, they all think I'm pretty awesome. So I've got text proof that they absolutely adore me.
Same, same.
We had some good Mother's Day stuff yesterday, but of course it was hard work in complete transparency. It was rough. It was hard. It taught my children a new wave of humanitarianism. I had boys that did the scouting program here in America, and that it was almost like a cinch-in for, here's an Eagle project you could do if anyone's familiar with scouts. And none of them wanted to do pearls with purpose, like let's find goods, let's create backpacks, let's do medical supplies and ship them over, which is kind of funny. But it did allow me access to a lot of young men who were willing to help out with a lot of the projects that we did. And so that was great. And then at the time of my divorce, I was able to take 3 of my kids with me into India, where we actually spent from January to May of a year processing through that while doing training down in southern India, up in northern in Rishikesh, and then over in Cambodia, and then back into India. And that was so transformational because we lived in an ashram. We did so much of India from the perspective of, we're living here, and we had a carry-on suitcase. It's amazing when you take your life down to a carry-on suitcase, how simple it becomes. It's like, wow, why do I have the house I have or the stuff I have when I can live out of a carry-on for 6 months? But that was truly transformational. I remember my son, Jenner, he's my middle one, and he was 18 turning 19 on that trip. And we had hiked up into the oldest temple in the Himalayas, and we were sitting on this rooftop watching sunset go down. And so this is the end of February. He's coming from spend January and February in leprosy colonies and interacting with some pretty horrific horror stories. And as we hiked up there and we're sitting watching the sunset, he's looking out and he goes, Mom, how does all this happen? Like, gosh, he saw his dad shoot his mom and baby sister and throw them in a dumpster. Like, how does this happen? How does such horror and hunger and poverty and begging, like, why does this exist? And I didn't have an answer for him. And it was a full year and a half later, and I saw this film, and it's a beggar begging in the streets in Europe, and nobody's dropping coins on his mat. And then a woman walks by and she picks up his sign and she rewrites the sign and she puts it down. And all of a sudden, all these coins are dropping on his mat. And then she comes walking across the plaza again at the end of day. And he recognizes her footsteps. And he says, what did you do to my sign? And she said, nothing. I just changed the words. And then it says, change your words, change your life. And what had originally been written on his sign was, help me, I'm blind. And what she had done is crossed that off and said, it's a beautiful day, I can't see it.
Oh.
And as soon as I watched that, I was like, Jenner, I have the answer. It's not, why is all this happening? It's, how can I help what's happening? It's, where can I go to school? How could I be a doctor? How could I be a nurse? How could I teach literacy? How could I go across the world and be an English instructor? Like, how can I help what's going on? It's not, why is it going on? It's, you're asking the wrong questions. And that just helped our entire family. Like they quit seeing everything as, this is horrible, this shouldn't be happening. And they flipped it to, I'll go with Mom on this trip. I'll donate my Barbie dolls. I'll give this food. And so they're all so amazing, as they're all 30 to 37 right now. No, 28 to 37. Wow. And they just live such amazing human-oriented lives.
That's amazing. That's amazing. You got to tell the story. You wrote a book, The Purple Dress. You gotta tell the story about the purple dress and how that came about. What about the purple dress?
So the purple dress is my youngest daughter's story, actually, Jerica. And she was a flower girl in her cousin's wedding. And she, at the age of 6, 7, and 8, just loved dresses like most little girls do. And this purple dress that she was given for the wedding was her most favorite, satin, silk, and just a cute little ribbon and long to her ankles. And she could spin in it and twirl in it. And it was just magical. And she did what all little girls do. She outgrew it. And running the nonprofit, I was like, Jerica, you have so many clothes. Like, let's get rid of some of your clothes. And she was just like, we can get rid of all my ugly things, but not my favorite things. They could have this discarded thing, but not my favorite stuff. And then I had her try on this purple dress, and it was way too short. It was missing 2 buttons on the back. The sash was ripped. And I was like, let's fix this and donate. And she's like, okay. We sewed on some mixed match buttons. I didn't have purple thread. We used black thread. We fixed the sash up, shipped it off. And up until that point, we had done 260,000 tons of clothing, food, educational supplies, medical supplies into 42 provinces by that point in time. Well, 2 years passes. So it's not even like it was 2 weeks later. 2 full years pass. My oldest daughter, Mackenzie, and I are in Philippines. We are on this overnight bus going to some different villages for a documentary. We get off in this village called Legazpi City. As we exit the bus, it's 7 a.m, Sunday morning, and there's a little girl going down the dirt road, and my daughter grabs my arm and says, Mom, that's Jerica's purple dress. I'm like, it shipped 2 years ago, honey. There's no way that's Jerica's dress. And she's like, Mom, that is her dress. And so she grabs my arm, we go running down the street, and we chase this girl down. She's going into this little building. And we're like, hey, what's your name? She's like, Grace Cavayo. Where do you live? I live out in the jungle. And she points. We're like, how far away? She's like, 2 kilometers. And she had walked that morning to come to this little church building. And we're like, where'd you get such a pretty dress? 2 years ago, an angel from America shipped boxes to my village. I always wanted a dress to wear to my church. Isn't it beautiful? And she spun around, and I see these mishmash buttons. Kenzie and I are just bawling. We're using our little iPhones. We're snapping pictures. We run with Grace down to her house in the jungle, and she runs into this squatter's hut house. She's the oldest of 9 kids. She's 12, and she changes into a tank top and shorts, comes out with a machete, shimmies up a coconut tree, machetes down a coconut. Are you thirsty? Hands us the coconut. And I said, well, where's your dress? I have to take good care. My little sister will have her first dress when I'm too big for this. And I'm just like, that never would have happened in America. Never would have happened. And so it just helps kids understand, like, yes, you can get happiness in a moment, in an hour, but if you want it for a lifetime, helping somebody else every day is a way to achieve that.
Wow. And one act of kindness.
So we wrote the book.
Doesn't it? Wow.
Yeah.
That's a story. That's a story. I never get tired of that story. So, Wendy, you've been through a lot of personal hardship with medical issues and recovering from terrible accidents. Gosh.
I've been in the way of a few cars for some reason.
Yeah. So, do you think because of those hardships, you found your purpose, or was it already there?
Oh, that's a great question. I can honestly say so there have been 3 separate car accidents, 3 individuals that have run red lights. And then my car was the recipient of that neglect. And the result, I think you mentioned 61, it's been 65 surgeries. So my body is half titanium. I've got artificial everything except my boobs, which that's a whole other story. But it's just, artificial knees, hips, back, spine, neck, shoulder, ankles. Like it's just difficult. It's a challenge, right? Every hospital, every recovery, all the physical therapy. There was one time before a speech, and I had sat down and totaled up all the physical therapy sessions I had done, and it was the equivalent of 11 and a half years of a full-time job. That's how much PT I had done at that point in time. Just having to learn how to walk again 3 separate times, like just all of it. And for some reason, and I don't know the reason, I'm digging deep trying to identify it, but for some reason, all I can think is, had I been in India, had I been in the Philippines, had I been in Africa, I would be dead. Like here in America, I've been gifted a hospital. I've been gifted surgeons. I've been gifted artificial body parts. Any other place in the world, except Europe or whatever, I would have been dead. Or I would have been forced to live handicapped, right? I would not have had recovery. I just wouldn't have. I have seen that unfold on many a trip where there's just a body laying in the dirt, and it's there. Like there is nobody taking care of it. I've heard the stories. I've watched, the women crying because their spouse was hit by a car and they're still in the gutter, or they're in the hospital, but no one will pay a hospital bill and nobody will perform a surgery because they don't have the money for the surgery. And so I know how it would have unfolded had I lived anywhere else. And so I don't know why I can push through, but I think it is because of the work I do that I can be like, it would have been different had I been anywhere else. And so I just have so much gratitude. I have such a depth of grace and appreciation for just that gift of life, that mortality motivation right? Because I should not be alive today. I should not. All five of my kids were C-sections. Like, you don't hear of five C-sections in any world. And it's like, and that first one, he would have died had I not been in a hospital. You know, if I would have done a home birth, not knocking home births, but had I done a home birth, he and I both would have died.
Wow.
And it's that matter of fact. And so I just look at modern medicine where I have the honor of living in America, and it's like it shouldn't work this
Yeah,
way, but it has.
that's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
I know exactly where you're coming from. I understand exactly what you're saying because, I've been going to India, like you said, for, 25 years. And who knew? I mean, who knew that that would happen? And every year I think, this is my last trip, but this will have to be the last trip. And then people start asking about going because I take the groups over there for polio. And I think, how can I not go? Suppose that the one child that I was supposed to vaccinate or someone in my team that's going was supposed to vaccinate doesn't get the vaccination because we didn't go.
That's it.
How can I not go? So I understand where you're coming from. I totally understand where you're coming from. You also authored or created a planner called
Yeah.
Unstick the Stuck. I love that. Unstick the Stuck because a lot of times so many people are stuck, and they can't unstick themselves. But especially young people. I think about young people. If you could leave one message for the next generation, especially the young people struggling with anxiety or comparing each other or all this social media noise that they're hearing, what
Mm.
would you want them to carry for the rest of their lives? What would you say to them?
I will tell you this if I could share it with just a quick, brief story that happened in Kenya. So we had opened Kenya, and I had been over there a couple times, and then I was there in March of 2020. We all know what happened then, and so I wasn't able to come home. And here's the quote that goes with it: your habits are what ground you during a time of crisis. And so there's this team of 5 that I'm with, and I watched as we learned, COVID, no flights, no nothing. You're quarantined, you're American, you can't get out of our country. You're stuck here. And I watched as these 4 other individuals completely fell apart. And yet I still got up at 6. I did my yoga. It's not bragging. It's just my habits grounded me during that time of crisis. And if you are not developing good habits that will ground you, come what may, no matter if it's a pandemic, if it's poverty, if it's a job loss, if it's mental illness, if you're not grounded in good habits, every crisis will throw you under a bus. Every accident, every unexpected moment. I mean, I could tell you a million of them that I've personally gone through. And it's habits that ground you during your times of crisis that sustain you, edify you, uplift you, and allow you to move forward. And so you have to have good habits. And it's different for everybody. There is no one way is right or wrong. For me, it's, scripture based, it's edification, spiritual meditation, drinking water, don't drink soda pop, don't drink alcohol, don't smoke, don't do recreational anything
Right.
except hiking and the outdoors, and it's journaling, it's a gratitude practice, like it's practices that ground us into that depth of appreciation you were just mentioning for life, for the goodness it offers. And social media, I've done 17 years of study in this field. There's real truth to the rewiring of the brain that it does and the damage it does to your confidence, to your mental psyche, and it can be undone. And that's what the Unstick the Stuck planner is all about. It's about that morning. What are 3 questions you're going to ask yourself? What is your one to do that you must do that day? Some people, it's take a shower. I remember doing a keynote, and I had one woman raise her hand, and she's all polished and proper and just beautifully made up business attire. And the woman sitting next to her was yoga pants, ponytail, probably didn't do a shower that morning, very casual. And the one woman in the business attire raises her hand. She's like, my one must do is I need to not take a shower and do a yoga class. And the lady next to her starts crying and goes, my one must do is I have to take a shower, get dressed, and put on makeup for the day. Like, it's different for everybody. And so there isn't right, there isn't wrong. It's just, what is your stuff that you have to address, you have to do, you have to make a priority for you to get through the day. Does
Wow.
that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. You're absolutely right. Because if you don't have those habits or that way of life, then you're right. You don't know which direction to go if something happens.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
that's great. That's wonderful. Well, Wendy, what's your IQ? What is your impact quotient? You have certainly proven that you have a huge impact on not just the world, but on people that know you personally. And it's been my pleasure
Oh,
to have you on this podcast. I'm so thrilled for you being here, and wish you the best of travels, your upcoming travel. But I will see you in Taiwan.
heck yeah. We will definitely be in Taiwan together.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Wendy. This has been What's Your IQ? What's Your Impact Quotient with Nancy Barbie. Thank you, Wendy.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Nancy.